Welcome to Prison, the Hidden Sentence, raising awareness and providing education and insights for individuals and families with incarcerated loved ones, educating and empowering through personal stories of those affected by and involved with our prison population.
Hi, this is Julia Lazareck with Prison, the Hidden Sentence. And today I'm here with Lily, who I met several years ago. And it wasn't until I shared my story about my brother that she shared her experience about being arrested and how it changed her life and her perspective on the criminal justice system. Lily, thank you so much for being here. And let's just jump right in. You told me that you were arrested a couple of years ago and the experience really made a lifelong impression on you. Yeah, just start from the beginning.
Absolutely, Julia. And thanks for having me. I was arrested a couple of years ago for a DUI, which in Arizona, where I lived, they arrest so many people in Arizona for DUI. That's like the number one thing they arrest people for. And of course, driving under the influence is my fault, my choice. And I feel really stupid for making that choice, but it happened. And the interesting part about it for me, it kind of happened in three parts. It was not that late at night. I got pulled over. They pulled me over in like a parking lot of a Target or something. It was a big one. And we got out of the car and they made me do the DUI, walk a straight line and all that stuff. And when you're drunk, you don't think you're doing badly, but one can only imagine what I really look like. And I don't know. So they said they were going to stuff me in their car and they put me in the Cruiser. And the first thing I noticed was I'm not exactly a small person, but I'm not a big person either, about 5'6", and it was tiny back there. Yeah. It was, not only was it tiny, but it was like a plastic molded benchy type of experience, and then the big wiry thing in front of it. And like, it was uncomfortable. If I was any taller or if I was any bigger, it would have been they would have had to get me in there with a shoehorn. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, not only do I feel like an animal instantly, but I just feel like really, this is not great. So we drive down they had set up a lab, a field office for taking blood. And it's getting later, it's dark, and they take me into the place where they're going to draw blood. And I have these really tiny disappeary veins. And so that was not a fun experience. It was not like I'm sure the person doing it was a professional, but it wasn't their best professional. So that was an unpleasant experience. And I'm crying, going, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? And by the time I got through all the paperwork and all the blood tests, like they said things to me like, we're going to take your blood. And if you refuse, it's going to be worse for you. And like threatening stuff like follow our plan or else. And I've never been arrested. I didn't have anything to measure that experience by. So it was kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to get in more trouble if I don't do exactly what they say. So I did whatever they said to. And ultimately, they stuffed me in a cab at the end of the experience and sent me home. I called a lawyer immediately next morning. I called a lawyer immediately, literally a person who had put a flyer in my mailbox. It was just a random flyer of a lawyer that, in Arizona, like I said, they pick up everybody for DUI. So I got a promotional flyer in the mail, and I had oddly still had it. And I called the guy and we met over the phone. I told him my story and he picked up the case right away. I paid him. And what happened was time passed between that moment and the time I was supposed to go to court. And I showed up at court with him. He told me what to say. Like, I met him before the appointment and we met in this room and he said, say this, say that, say this, say that. So I get in there and I'd say everything that he says to say. And the guy goes, okay, the judge. And he goes, okay, so you're going to have to spend one night in jail. And then you're going to have to be on probation for X amount of time. And you're going to have to go to alcohol class, 2 of them. One of them was like a group alcohol class that was going to last for like 6 or 9 months. And the other one was like driver safety drunk driver course. They make you watch videos of people who don't wear their seatbelts and people who are drunk driving and texting while they drive and all this scary, super scary, creepy stuff. I want to say a swear word, but I'm just going to say it was creepy. So I signed up for all that, and I signed up for my time that I was going to go spend my one night in jail. And I picked a weekday. I worked for myself kind of. And so I had a flexible schedule. And so I picked a weekday. And I drove myself down there, and they said, wear loose clothing. You're going to be there for 24 hours. And so that means whatever you're wearing, you're going to be sleeping and eating and waking up. You're in the same clothes. It's not like can't bring a suitcase, basically. Not that I was thinking that, but whatever. So I get there in a pair of tennis shoes and a sweatshirt and my sweatpants. And I parked my car, and I'm petrified because I don't have, again, nothing to judge the experience against. For the most part, minus this one experience, I'm pretty much a rule follower. So I did whatever they said to do. And I get there, and they take my keys and they take my license, and they put me into this process of like assimilation, basically, is what I could say it was. You get in there, you answer all the questions, you get your picture taken. It was just like it was like being put into a plant where they package something and, and you're like stamped and packaged and wrapped just like everybody else. And what really struck me, and I can still feel it in my body, and what really struck me was getting in there and just instantly not being me anymore. You're no longer Lily. You're the package. Whatever your number is, you're the package. So they tied me up, with string, and not literally, but just like a package, and stuck me in with a group of other incarcerated people who, were in for various reasons, but were being assimilated at the same time. And I'm a chatter. I'm a talker. So I'm like, hi, my name's Lily. Who are you? What are you in for? Not too inquisitive because it just doesn't seem like a cocktail party or anything, but I'm nosy. So I'm asking a few questions, and I thought it interesting too. Some of the people I was with in that group of people were offering information like, oh, this is what we're going to do next. This is what happens next, trying to help you kind of get the picture of what was going to happen next. But I was like, okay, so again, it was simply being processed, like I was a cow or a sheep or something. And what struck me was how the correctional officers, their energy was so different than what I had experienced. It was like, they don't know me. They can't tell whether or not I don't want to say good person or bad person, but like, person, whatever, different.
You committed the crime or not. Or
right. Whether I'm guilty or not guilty.
Yeah.
Right. They don't know anything. So it really struck me that they really don't have an opportunity to treat anybody any differently. They really literally do have to treat everybody the same way. So yes, I was guilty of a DUI, but I don't feel like I'm a bad or scary person or a threat to society, whatever. And it just made me feel like, wow, they really don't have any choice. They have to just assume everybody is the same. And that was interesting. It was a really interesting, energetic. So like, I guess my point is I couldn't change their opinion of me by acting nicer or not nicer. It didn't matter. You're in jail. So you're there for a reason. Somebody decided that you did something wrong and you need to go there. So, okay. I get from the part where they hold you, and then it's Arizona. So there's a piece of the group that gets shuttled off to Tent City. That's where I was headed for, which was a far away place on the property from where you enter. So it was a series of, okay, go here. Okay, sit here and wait. Okay, next you're going to go to this spot. Okay, sit here and wait. Okay, next you're going to go to this spot. It was like leapfrog, you go from one, pretty much I felt like, okay, I'm just going to shut my face and do whatever I'm supposed to do. And I finally get let out. Me and like 4 or 5 other ladies get let out at this Tent City.
Yeah, if you could explain that too. I don't think everybody remembers or knows what Tent City is.
Well,
that's crazy.
Yeah, well, it's outdoors. I'm going to say that. It's outdoors and it's kind of like barracks tents. So they were probably, and I honestly can't even remember whether they were wooden or metal, but they were structures that big canvas tents were draped over. In them, there were probably 12 to 16 stacked bunks long. So they were pretty big, dirt floor. And on the bunks was like barracks blankets and no pillow and no mattress or anything. It was just, it was a barracks blanket and you picked a spot. And the thing is, I got in there like 6:00 by that time, maybe 7:00 by that time. And there was sort of a communal area and they brought dinner. And the dinner consisted of literally rotten fruit and some gruel looking stuff and some bread looking stuff. And I'm pretty careful about what I eat. So I knew I was only in there for 24 hours. So I kind of like did my best to pick an apple that didn't look so gnarly. And the rest of it, there was no way it was going. Honestly, it looked like rotten food. And one of the girls that I sat next to, because like I said, I'm kind of chatty. So I didn't like go to my own spot. I just kind of cozied up to some nicer look, people who were nice to me. And sat with them. And one of them was a girl who was in Tent City. She was being transitioned out of a different part of the jail that she had been in for several months. And she was not getting along with the people that were in that group. And so they were transitioning her to another spot. So in the holding period, they threw her in Tent City because that's kind of the catch-all cattle pen for short-term, long-term, really. But she said, yeah, I worked in the kitchen. And she said, this food that you're looking at right now comes in a bag that's literally and very clearly marked not for human consumption. And I was like, well, I wasn't going to eat it before, but now I'm for sure not going to eat it. And I know if I was there and I was really quite hungry, I probably would eat it. But it just, well, first of all, it pissed me off, made me really, really angry that was the situation. And here was the alternative. Get this. The alternative was you were allowed to keep money. And I think I had some sort of card or I don't know what I had. I think I had a little cash or something like that. And I think I was instructed prior to going in, bring a little cash because there were vending machines that were behind. These vending machines were behind the like cages. And you could use a vending machine. So it was either this gruel that was marked not for human consumption, or you could somehow get some money or borrow money, or I don't even remember why I had money. I think they told me to bring a couple of bills. So I think I had like $5 or $10 or something like that. And I got those crackers with the peanut butter inside because the orange ones, because that's like my favorite thing. So it was literally like junk food, chips and candy and soda, which I'm sorry, but I'm very into nutrition and that's like, might as well eat the gruel, if you ask me. It was junk food or spoiled food were the two options. And if you didn't have any money, you were SOL for the junk food. And so it was really crappy. And I was most struck by the eating situation because once you're in there, it's not like you can go on out to McDonald's or go on out to the store or you're like literally stuck there for whatever time they say. And I met this one girl that was in there. She was a young girl. She had gotten a DUI. And unlike my sentence, she had like 2 weeks in there. And I just looked at her and thought, man, what are you going to eat for 2 weeks? And there was another girl in there who had been in there for almost a month. And she was really fat. And she was like, well, I've been eating junk food out of a vending machine for a month. So you tell me, and I was just like, this is poo. It was not great. So then I laid down on my little cot at night, like it was about, 10 or 11. And I laid down there and all this while, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever been in the hospital, but in the hospital stuff happens and they have to use the loudspeaker. And even though they know people are trying to get rest, that just stuff's happening. There's no way around it. And so like that in the jail, there were announcements that were going on. Like, every hour there was some announcement of so-and-so needs to be at the gate at blah, blah, blah. And, fill in the blank. It was a bunch of announcements, but it came over a loudspeaker that you could hear for 4 or 5 miles, And so that was what was like, I was looking forward to for the sleeping portion was like, I'm laying horizontally, but I'm clearly not going to be getting any sleep. And about midnight, like I'm still awake, they call my name and say, Lily, get to the gate. You're going out. That's all they said. I'm like, okay, so what's happening next? And I go to the gate and the lady opens the gate and they said, go get on the shuttle. Yes, ma'am. Get on the shuttle. Okay. Sit in this room. Okay. Sitting in this room. You're with again, a bunch of male, female pile of people getting assimilated. And not being told by any correctional officer what was happening, being told by correctional officers, don't ask any questions because I don't know what's happening with you until I know what's happening with you. So I don't know you. Pretty much don't speak till you're spoken to. There's nothing I can tell you. I'm not going to tell you. And they weren't very nice, and I can't blame them. They're dealing with people who are guilty and not guilty, and they don't know. And some of the people who weren't very nice back to them. So, if you mirror the experience, they were unhappy. And it was not fun. And I'm getting closer to a different space in the jail. And then finally it's like, okay, well, you're leaving now. And I'm like, okay. So they give you your stuff and they kick you out the front door and say, drive away. And first of all, I still got just a wave of goosebumps right now. Still just so pissed about the food situation. And the whole experience, I got out of there thinking, what can I do about that? What can I do about that? Because it really, really bugged me. The people in there looked super unhealthy and really uncomfortable. And honestly, I know enough about nutrition. You feed people junk food that long, they're not going to be able to smile. That just doesn't go anywhere for their attitude, And so anyway, I drove away. And I was forever changed. That was a lifetime deterrent for me to never have that experience again. I wouldn't even think of stepping on the opposite side of the law for any reason, not DUI, not any other minor infraction. No way would I ever want to go back there. Mostly for two reasons. One was the nutrition, and that was made me so angry. And second was for the way that there's no way around that correctional officer having any kind of bland or blank attitude toward you. They don't have a choice. And I felt really sorry for them. I felt compassionate toward them, that they have to have that energy poured at them, however long their shift is. And I thought, man, if I was a correctional officer, I would spend the other 12 hours of the day singing happy songs to myself and trying to make myself smile, like pouring good, positive energy into myself just to try and even that out. It was so rotten.
It's a whole nother world. I mean, that people don't know about. And that's why I wanted you to share your story, because a lot of times we talk with family members and what it's like on the outside. And your situation, in the big picture, you were pretty lucky that you didn't have to serve a lot of time. I just want to make a note about the nutrition. That was something that somebody told you, so we can't validate that.
No.
So I'm not saying it's not true. However, I just want to make a point here that we can't validate what that person said.
True story.
And I wanted to go back to something that you had told me offline about how there was people there that you might not have spoken to on the outside, and how that changed you also. Absolutely.
One of the things that struck me, because like I said, I'm kind of chatty. So I questioned people, what are you doing here? And over that meal, everybody was feeling kind of talky. And so, what are you doing here? How long you been here? When do you get out? What do you do on the outside? Blah, blah, blah. And I met people there who, the one segment of those people who struck me the most were the ones who had been in and out and in and out and in and out. And I just thought, I listened to what they were saying, and I kept thinking to myself, my one little tiny scratch the surface trip in is enough to keep me out of it forever. But they had a certain comfort level with known territory of being in. And I just registered that and thought, people can get used to anything, and they can get normalized to anything. And I would probably not have met people who were in and out of that system on any kind of consistent basis on the outside. I'm not dead yet, so who knows who I'll meet, but it was an interesting perspective that, again, just really solidified my own path going forward in my lifetime to keep my butt on the side where they don't put me back. I did not like the feeling of having my rights taken away and getting the clear impression that that was too bad for me and I could just deal with it. It wasn't like, look, I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to take your rights away. You're going to feel like a number for however long you're in here. And all I could think of was, if I were in here for the rest of my life, that going from a name to a number thing is hard on a spirit. It's hard on a spirit. And it felt heavy and it felt like I didn't want that.
No, I'm really glad you brought that up, because when somebody is taken into the system, they are institutionalized. They do lose their identity, and the longer they're in.
Absolutely.
And so it's really important for families on the outside to keep that humanity with their loved one. I mean, if you were in any longer, you would have had family, friends visiting you, and how could they have supported you?
How would they ever know, even me telling now, how would they ever know how that really feels? You really don't know how it feels, but I can tell you it is spirit crushing, or it was for me. And it was a tiny, tiny teaspoon of it was just enough to grab me by the internal throat and go, bye. I didn't like it.
And that's why you're here, to tell your story and to share it, right? Because you just had like a little taste of it. And, here you are being able to talk about it and share with people and with families so that they get a little snippet of what it's like. And that whole tent town thing, I don't think it's there anymore, but that was crazy, putting people outside in Arizona in the summer, and it gets really hot there.
Cold.
And even gets cold in the winter.
Yeah. It's very cold at night.
No matter what somebody has done, they're still a human being, and there's still people on the outside that love them.
Yeah.
And there's still retribution, but people shouldn't be treated like animals. So it was just interesting. I didn't know about the Bruiser, and I can understand why it's plastic, and so people don't hurt themselves.
Sure.
Sick or whatever.
But not tiny like that, like tiny, like knees up in my nose, and I'm only 5'6",
Yeah.
If I were 6 feet, or if I were a 6 foot big person, forget it. It would be a real challenge, and I would end up with a lot of bruising.
Yeah, it's, things that we're sharing with the families and the people that are listening. Now, if you had my book, Prison, the Hidden Sentence, and read it prior to that, you might have had some more information of how to handle things. So I'm just putting a little plug in there for my book that I think everybody should read.
Absolutely.
But this podcast is really important too, because we're bringing different people in, and we usually talk to families. But I just was so intrigued by your story and how it really affected your life, and how you're seeing things differently, that when you meet somebody that's been incarcerated, that you have more empathy for them. And then
without a doubt,
you would talk to them differently, or not have that judgment that a lot of people have.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that, and not that I would ever wish this on anybody, however, people need to realize that incarceration arrest can happen to anybody, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Absolutely.
You had an experience where, you will never do that again, right?
Surely I broke the law, but it could have been, can be for anything.
It could be for like having a similar name. It could be, especially for kids, if they're with other kids that are doing something, they're guilty just by being there.
And they still have to remove your rights, because they don't know if you're guilty or not guilty. So you still have that experience of just being like turning into a number.
Yeah, I still know my brother's number. It's something that person on the inside or person on the outside never forgets. So looking at your experience and what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Well, not drink and drive alone.
There you go.
But, minus that stupidity. Not really. I mean, I really got super, super, super lucky. If you talk to many other people, many of the bazillions of other people in Arizona who are arrested for DUI, there are horror stories about Tent City. There are horror stories about the amount of money it takes. There's plenty of bad news on that front. I was super, super, super lucky to have it happen the way that it did, and to only have a short period of time of my incarceration, and to have that tiny, tiny experience. Pretty lucky. So things I could have done differently, not get there in the first place. And you know what? as a result of that tiny, tiny experience, I won't put myself and don't put myself and have never, ever, would not even think of putting myself in a situation like that. So for me, it was a total lifetime deterrent.
And sometimes things happen, give you a new perspective on life. It's in some ways made you more compassionate to other people. I was going to say made you a better person, but I can't judge that because I already think you're a good person. So, but definitely having that compassion for other people, that empathy, that's why it's easy to tell your story, that any little thing that happens in your life can change you. And it all depends on how you look at it and how you move forward with it. I just want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope people that are listening get something out of it. And you could reach out to us at prisonthehiddensentence.com. And everybody just have a wonderful day and don't drink and drive. Thanks, Lily.
Sure.
This is Julia, and I just want to take a minute to tell you about the Prison, the Hidden Sentence book. There's so many things that you need to know when a loved one's taken into the prison system that nobody tells you. This book will provide valuable information to help you as you go through the stages of the prison system with your loved one. I also share stories so you know that you're not alone as you're going through this. Prison, the Hidden Sentence book can be purchased on Amazon.
You can hear more stories or share your story at prisonthehiddensentence.com. And follow us at Hidden Sentence on Facebook and Twitter. We are Prison, the Hidden Sentence, raising awareness one story at a time.